Good morning. I wanted to go over something important. When you do back tests, the way NinjaTrader does, it looks at different variables than live. And there's usually a discrepancy between what we see live and what actually happened historically. Sometimes you'll do back tests, you get great results, but live trading is off. Here's an example. Yesterday, if you watched one of my shorts, you'll see we lost a trade. It was the first trade we lost in December. We had 9 winning trades in a row and then lost one yesterday. I want to show you what happens in backtesting. For this strategy, we disabled it and I re-enabled it for today. Now, I went through its backtest because whatever chart is open, it'll actually go through and do a quick back test basically with whatever strategy you have and create data for that back test right here. And if you look at our historical here, remember yesterday we lost a trade, but here it shows that we have not lost a trade. Remember, this historical is not part of my actual live trades. It does a back test, checks it, and it gives you a percentage and information on how it would have gone, right? Now we know that we lost the trade, but let's see what NinjaTrader shows as far as what happened in the trade. And I want to show you this because it's really important and it really sets the stage of how we have to think when we're doing back tests versus how we trade live. And some of the things we've actually done with Strategy Ninja so that you can avoid those things. The first thing is this white dot right here is where the candle closed. On the right here, we actually have the regular candles. So right here is where the candle closed, which would have been that dot right there. And so the next candle, it opens right there, right? It's on the exact same price as it closed. Where trader says we actually entered into the trade, it shows entered right here on the blue triangle. It assumes we entered right here. Why does it assume that? It could be for multiple reasons. Basically, it's usually right on the dot is where it's at, wherever the new candle opens. If that's the case, it says we should have hit our profit target here about a tick under its high. Remember, yesterday we were about 1 tick away from our profit target, about 2 ticks higher. Now, why does this happen? This would have been 53 ticks. We actually entered 2 ticks higher than where it closed yesterday, creating a take profit slightly higher. Now, let's discuss why this happened. And usually what happens is it comes down to your internet speed. In a perfect world, we would have entered on the open, or if you were using one of those VPS servers, at that point, you would have entered just where the last candle closed and hit your profit target. My internet speed at home is not very good. I get a lot of disconnections. What ends up happening is because of that, I end up entering maybe 500 milliseconds, 800 milliseconds, maybe even a second later. So what could have happened is this candle opens, it falls down a little bit, it rises and continues up. Instead of entering on the open of the new candle, maybe I ended up entering right here. Instead of being there, I end up a few ticks higher. It ends up not hitting the profit target by a couple ticks. That's exactly what happened. So is the historical back test correct? In a sense, it is. Is it incorrect? Just as much as it's correct. The issue was internet speed, and it's usually the case because we have a lag between when we send an order in. So for example, this closes and it sends an order in, and by the time it comes back to NinjaTrader as accepted, it could have gone just slightly different. There's so much data in every second of trading. The price could have gone up and down several times before your order was accepted. A big issue with historical versus live is your internet trading speed. If you have good internet at home, most likely you won't see these small discrepancies, although it'll happen from time to time. Now, if you use a VPS, most likely not see. I've heard a lot of people when they end up going to a VPS, a lot of their problems go away when it comes to errors and copying trades, all sorts of issues, because the speed matters. You have so many moving parts, especially in trading. When data goes out and it comes back, the timing, all of that matters. And so something like this would not happen as often when you have a VPS that has really quick speeds and are located near where the trading actually occurs. Now, what can we do to fix these issues to some degree, even with bad internet, for example? There's two things that I've done in Strategy Ninja. The first is basic. It's a break-even trigger. The strategy has a minimum of 40 ticks. So at 40 ticks, it's saying no matter what gets calculated out that the take profit should be, we won't use any value under 40 ticks. If it hits 40 ticks, even if our take profit is higher, it'll bring your stop loss to wherever you entered. So if you entered here, it brings it one tick in, one tick above you're entering. Even if it goes higher or it doesn't go high enough and it comes down, you won't go into a loss, right? So you'll actually end up just breaking even or maybe losing the fee, which is a couple bucks. At least you don't end up losing your entire trade, right? So if we would have had this enabled yesterday, we would have been safe. We would have closed out at open and protected a $100 loss. So what's the second possible fix? The second possible fix is this option here, calculate take profit, stop loss, break even, DCA. And currently it's on average entry. And if we move this to close price, now we get a little bit of a different situation. So on average entry, what it does is wherever you end up entering, that's where you're calculating your take profit. So we entered a bit higher here. So we're several ticks higher than where the bar closed or the new one opened. It's calculating off that entry point, 53 ticks for the take profit. Now, if we had it on close price, what does that do? That basically says we're going to calculate the take profit not from where you entered, but from where the previous bar actually closed. And so the previous bar closed right there, which means, again, we would have hit our take profit. So two things you could have done, we could do going forward in this strategy to fix these kind of issues. Now, each of these things does change your historical backtesting, and it will change the way you trade going live. And that's because every change matters, right? If you do a close price, now all of a sudden your profit will likely be less, especially with your internet speed entering higher than it expects. All of a sudden you're going to have a few less ticks in profit every single time, right? Like for example, here we would probably have, 4 or 5 ticks less, $2.50. We could fix it using some of these things or just allow it to continue trading. That's up to you. Those are some options. Maybe in the future we'll add break-even parameters that will dynamically update according to the take profit instead of a static number. Maybe we'll update this so it's whatever the calculated take profit is minus two ticks, for example. That way it would be more realistic, true value rather just a static value that may not actually matter as much. For example, yesterday we were off just by a few ticks, and I had a dynamic option where it's 5 ticks below your take profit zone. It would have brought my break even open. So if I would have done something like that, again, yesterday we wouldn't have had a loss. So anyway, I just wanted to go through a few of those things. Why we see discrepancy. Internet is the biggest issue. Your internet speed and where it believes you've entered versus where you actually entered in the real world. That's one of the biggest issues. There are other issues like tick data, depending on where you're getting information from. NinjaTrader, Rhythmic, Apex, and other prop firms. That could affect it. Most issues come down to your internet speed and latency. We've got the reason, and we've got a couple options to fix those issues if you don't use a VPS. I don't use one yet. I will be in the future. But it's nice to see it from both sides because that way, as I'm designing the software and making these fixes, I can see it from everybody's perspective rather than just a winning perspective like a VPS has, where it does way better in catching a lot of these issues. Again, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Press the like button, subscribe, and we'll be doing a lot more videos. But I just wanted to show you what happens in the real world versus what happens historically. We still had 9 wins. We had 1 loss this month. So I think it was still a great month. We'll see what happens today. But hopefully you got some information out of this. If you have any comments, just leave them there. If you have questions about how that works. And again, this isn't part of my software that these issues happen. This is just part of trading live. It has nothing to do with my software. It has nothing to do with NinjaTrader. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's just the way the data comes in and the speeds that we respond from our computers. And that's what causes these small discrepancies. But those small discrepancies can cause really big losses, right? And it's important to understand what happens and why it happens and potential fixes. Hopefully that's good information for everybody. Let me know if you have any questions. See you next time. God bless.